The steel gate groaned open, and the sunlight stabbed my eyes like a knife. I squinted. 5 years inside had made me forget the sun's warmth. A guard's voice droned mechanically. Inmate 2187, Kyle Anderson, released on parole. I grabbed the plastic bag that held everything I owned, a watch, a wallet, and the clothes I was wearing when they arrested me. That was it. You look like shit, Mark Collins said, leaning against his beat-up sedan, a grim smile plastered on his face. 5 years in a cage will do that to you. I rasped, my voice raw from disuse. In the car, I watched the city skyline blur past. New skyscrapers, new overpasses. The world had moved on without me. New evidence, I said softly. 5 years later, new evidence just happens to pop up. Fucking convenient. You're out. That's what matters, Mark said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. It's parole, not an exoneration. The world still thinks I sold military secrets and got my team killed. Mark was quiet for a moment. The people who matter know the truth. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Do they? My father's dead, the company's gone, and Sophia. Mark's silence was answer enough. The letters had stopped 3 years ago, a prelude to the inevitable. She's with Ethan Vance now. They're engaged. A chill spread through my chest. Ethan Vance, my former captain, my brother since childhood, the man who testified against me in court. Take me to see my father first. At the cemetery, I knelt before the simple headstone. A heart attack, they said, for a man who was perfectly healthy, who never had a heart problem in his life. I'll find out the truth, Dad, I whispered, my hand on the cold stone. I promise. Back in the car, I opened my wallet. The contents were the same as 5 years ago. My driver's license, a few faded photos, and a military-grade microSD card disguised as a credit card. It was the one thing they hadn't found during my arrest. Take me to the Apex Tower. You should rest first, Mark protested. I've rested for 5 years, I replied. It's time to wake up. The Apex Tower loomed like a glittering spear. According to Mark, it was now the crown jewel of the Vance family's empire, built on the very land that once belonged to my father. A familiar car was parked at the entrance. Ethan Vance stepped out, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. Though a civilian now, he still moved with the precision of a soldier. Sophia Reed followed, more elegant than I remembered, a diamond necklace sparkling at her throat. They looked like the perfect couple, the war hero and his beautiful fiancée, the successful tycoon and his prize. My hands clenched in a fist before I deliberately forced them to relax. What's next? Mark asked. A smile touched my lips, but didn't reach my eyes. Now, I'm going to say hello to an old friend. The hotel lobby was a battlefield, and my cheap clothes, modified for my prison uniform, were my enemy's banner. A lavish crystal chandelier glittered overhead, illuminating every corner, and every corner of the hatred in my heart. Sir, can I help you? The receptionist asked, her brow furrowed. What floor is Mr. Vance on? Do you have an appointment? I smiled. Tell him Kyle Anderson is here. An old friend. The 10 minutes I waited felt as long as the 5 years I'd been locked away. The elevator doors finally slid open, and Ethan emerged, a perfect, fake smile on his face. Kyle. He opened his arms as if to embrace me. I heard you were out. I was just about to have someone get in touch. I sidestepped the hug. Really? I didn't see you at my father's funeral. Didn't get a single message during my 5 years in prison. Ethan's face tightened for a fraction of a second before his composure returned. Business, you know how it is. He lowered his voice. Let's talk somewhere private. In the suite, he poured 2 glasses of whiskey and raised one. To your freedom. To the truth. I took a small sip, the alcohol burning my throat after 5 years of sobriety. Let's let the past be the past, Kyle, Ethan said, setting his glass down. I can help you get back on your feet. The Vance Corporation could use a man with your talents. A traitor like me? I scoffed. Or a murderer? The operation went sideways. We were all victims. Really? I stared at his fingers, which were trembling slightly. You seem to be doing pretty well for yourself. Ethan's eyes flickered. Business is a battlefield. I just made the right choices. Your father's company was on the verge of bankruptcy. We offered a fair price. After he had his heart attack, Ethan's glass paused midair. An unfortunate coincidence. And Sophia? She waited 2 years for you, Kyle. You can't blame a young woman for wanting to move on. I stood up. Thanks for the drink, Ethan. I just wanted to see what 5 years could do to a man. Don't do anything stupid, Kyle. Ethan's voice turned sharp and cold. You have nothing now. Almost nothing. I corrected him. I still have the truth. Outside, rain began to fall, plastering my thin shirt to my skin. Mark was waiting by the car. How'd it go? He's scared, I said, a real smile finally forming. He has no idea what I have. What do you have? I pulled the disguised micro SD card from my wallet. The complete recordings from the mission 5 years ago, including Ethan's communications with foreign hostiles. Holy shit, you've had that the whole time. Why didn't you use it? Because it wasn't enough, I said, my gaze fixed on the neon glow of the Apex Tower. I don't just want to clear my name. I want them to lose everything. Mark's apartment was small but clean. I lay on the couch, staring at the water-stained ceiling. 5 years ago, the mission should have been simple. Surveillance on a suspected arms deal. But we were ambushed. 3 teammates died. The only survivors were me and Ethan. And then the evidence pointed to me. I became the traitor. I gently touched the scar on my left shoulder where a bullet that should have killed me was once embedded. Get some sleep, Mark said, tossing me a blanket. You're seeing your sister tomorrow. Chloe, is she okay? She's in college. Pre-med. She never once believed you were guilty. I closed my eyes, a wave of drowsiness washing over me for the first time in 5 years. Tomorrow, I would see the one family member who hadn't betrayed me. And then the revenge would begin. The post-rain air on campus was fresh, and the sea of young faces made me feel like an intruder from another world. Chloe Anderson was waiting for me outside the dining hall. She had grown into a poised young woman, but the moment she saw me, she threw herself into my arms like a little girl. Kyle, she cried, sobbing loud enough to turn heads. Keep it down, I said, patting her back. I'm kind of celebrity now, you know. Sorry, she said, wiping her tears and looking me up and down. You're so much thinner. I squeezed her cheek. And you got taller. I want to show you something, she said, pulling me toward a small grove of trees behind the main campus buildings. On a secluded bench, Chloe took a USB drive from her backpack. Dad gave this to me before he died. He said to give it to you if you ever got out. Her voice was low. I haven't looked at what's on it. I closed my hand around the drive. Thanks. Dad's death wasn't right, Kyle. He was so careful about his health. How could he just have a sudden heart attack? I know, I said, squeezing her hand. I'm going to find out. Be careful of Uncle Ethan, she whispered, leaning closer. He comes to see me sometimes, asking if Dad left anything behind for me. A knot of dread formed in my stomach. What did you tell him? I said there was nothing, she said, her eyes welling up again. But he scares me. Don't be scared, I said softly. I'm here now. As I left the campus, I noticed a black sedan parked down the street. The window was halfway down, and the man inside was holding a camera. Mark, I said into my phone. I need a favor. My sister's being watched. Back at Mark's place, I immediately plugged in the USB drive. It was mostly encrypted files, but there was one video. My father, sitting in his study, looking exhausted. Kyle, if you're watching this, it means my suspicions were correct, he said, looking directly into the camera. The Vance family isn't satisfied with a partnership. They want the whole company. Be careful of Ethan. He's not the man you think he is. The proof is in the old place. The password is your mother's anniversary of passing. The video ended abruptly, leaving me alone in the dark apartment. When Mark returned, his face was grim. The guy tailing Chloe was one of the Vance family's private security. Did you lose him? For now. I had Chloe go stay with my cousin. He tossed me a set of keys. Find anything? The old place? I murmured. I have to go home. My family's house on the North Shore was deserted, the yard choked with weeds. After 5 years of neglect, it looked like a haunted mansion. The key still worked. Inside, the furniture was gone, leaving only dust and memories. I went straight to the study and pulled back my father's favorite landscape painting. The safe behind it was untouched. My mother's passing. 0824. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single laptop. I powered it on, entered the security password, and the screen lit up. My father's voice suddenly filled the room from the speakers. If you're seeing this, you're out. This laptop contains every transaction between the Vance family and the Dragon Syndicate, and it contains Ethan's real identity. A photo appeared on the screen, a young Ethan Vance standing with a group of men in black suits. Next to him stood Victor Chun, the notorious head of the Dragon Syndicate. He was one of them from the start, Kyle. He infiltrated the Rangers for the sole purpose of feeding them military intelligence. And you were his perfect scapegoat. My fingers trembled as I clicked through the files, each one revealing a more horrifying piece of the truth. Ethan wasn't just an informant. He was the one who had killed our teammates during the ambush. A faint noise made me freeze. Someone was in the house. Find what you were looking for, old buddy. I spun around. Ethan Vance was leaning against the doorframe, casually playing with a pistol. You should have rotted in prison, Ethan said, the barrel of the gun aimed at my head, like a good little scapegoat. So the new evidence was a mistake? I sneered, holding the laptop behind me. A lawyer's error, a procedural flaw. Who knows, he said, stepping closer. But it gives me the chance to clean up this loose end myself. No one's going to believe I committed suicide this time, Ethan. Who said anything about suicide? He smirked. A mentally unstable parolee attacks his former captain and is tragically killed in the struggle. It's a perfect ending. I'm recording everything, I said, tapping my ear, live streaming it to my lawyer. Ethan froze, then burst out laughing. You think I'd fall for that? Give me the laptop. I clutched it tighter. Care to explain the picture of you and Victor Chun? His eyes darted nervously. Photos can be faked. Manipulating evidence is your specialty, not mine. The mission 5 years ago, you tipped them off, didn't you? You can't prove a damn thing, he yelled, his composure finally cracking. I pushed him further. What about our 3 teammates? Did you kill them yourself? Shut up. He raised the gun, his eyes wild. They saw something they shouldn't have. Just like you. The instant his finger tightened on the trigger, a deafening crack echoed through the house, but didn't come from his pistol. Ethan looked down in shock at his shoulder, where blood was blooming through his expensive suit. He spun around to see Mark standing in the doorway, a pistol still smoking in his hand. Cutting a little close, aren't you? I said, letting out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Don't move, Mark shouted. Drop the gun, Ethan. The cops are on their way. A savage look crossed Ethan's face. You think this is over? He lunged for the window, shattering it in a spray of glass. We ran to the opening just in time to see him jump onto a waiting motorcycle and speed off into the night. Damn it! Mark slammed his fist against the wall. I should have aimed for his head. You saved my life, I said, clapping him on the shoulder. That's enough. Police sirens wailed in the distance. I quickly checked the laptop, making sure the data was intact. We have to go, Mark urged. You're on parole. You can't be involved in a shootout. Wait. I held up a hand, quickly copying the most critical files and emailing them to a secure server. Okay, let's go. We slipped out the back just as squad cars swarmed the front of the house. Hours later, we were holed up in an abandoned warehouse on the south side. Mark's friend, Detective Miller, one of the only cops who believed I was innocent, gave us an update over the phone. Vance has a warrant out for his arrest. Assault on an officer and fleeing the scene, Miller said. But he's got the Dragon Syndicate protecting him. He won't be easy to find. I need time to go through this evidence, I said, looking at the laptop screen. My father had gathered more than I ever imagined. Be careful, Kyle. Miller's voice dropped. Today's raid wasn't a coincidence. Someone inside the department tipped him off that you were out. After the call, Mark looked at me, worried. What's the plan? I opened my father's files, scrolling through page after page. It's not enough. This proves Ethan's ties to the syndicate, but it's not enough to prove he killed our team, and it's definitely not enough to prove he murdered my father. You want to take them all down? Every last one, I said, my voice like ice, including Sophia Reed. Mark looked stunned. She just chose to leave you. When I needed her most, I said, staring at a photo on the screen of Ethan and Sophia at the Apex Tower's grand opening, both of them beaming. She's not innocent. You've changed, Kyle. 5 years in a cell changes a man, I sneered. The old Kyle Anderson is dead. I took out the other item I'd grabbed from the house, my father's old cell phone. The password was my birthday. There were a few unread messages. The last one from VC Was sent the day before my father died. See you tomorrow. Bring all the evidence. I'll help you get Kyle out. I clenched the phone. I've got a lead. Victor Chun was the second in command of the Dragon Syndicate. But in the underworld, everyone knew he was the one who really pulled the strings. His territory was the Onyx Lounge, a high-end club on the east side. On the surface, it was a health and fitness spa, but it was really a hub for money laundering and illicit deals. I changed into a suit Mark brought me, splashed on some expensive cologne, and walked into the Onyx Lounge carrying a briefcase full of cash. I'm here to see Mr. Chun, I told the hostess. Mr. Chun? I'm sorry, who's asking? Tell him the son of an old friend is here. An old friend named Anderson. The waiting room was obscenely luxurious. 20 minutes later, a mountain of men escorted me through a labyrinth of hallways to a top-floor office. Victor Chun was younger than I expected, maybe 40, dressed in a sharp suit. He looked more like a hedge fund manager than a mob boss. The Anderson kid, he said, sizing me up. I honestly never expected to see you again in one piece. Thanks to someone pulling a few strings, I said, taking a seat. I'm guessing that was you. Chun smiled. I owed your father a favor. So you knew my father. We were old friends, he said, his eyes narrowing. Your father helped me out of a few jams. Including laundering money? Chun laughed out loud. You're direct. I like that. No, your father was a straight arrow. Our business was confined to certain gray areas. Why was he coming to see you? The day before he died. Chin's smile vanished. You don't know. He died before he could tell me. He was silent for a moment, then walked to the window. Your father found out the Vance family was using his company to launder money. A lot of money. It went all the way to the top brass in the military. He had the proof and was going to give it to me in exchange for my help getting you out of prison. But he never showed up. The next day, I heard he died of a heart attack, Chin said, turning back, a dangerous glint in his eye. Too much of a coincidence, don't you think? You think the Vance had him killed? I'm not saying anything, he said, glancing warily at the ceiling. The walls have ears, even here. Where's the proof? As far as I know, your father kept everything at his house. I grew thoughtful. If I can get that evidence, would you be willing to help me take down the Vance family? Chin smiled. A businessman always looks for a return on his investment. What can you give me? I opened the briefcase. It wasn't cash. It was a thick dossier. Ethan Vance's entire criminal record. How he sold military intelligence. How he murdered his own men. How he framed me. Chun flipped through the pages, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Interesting. Your father raised a smart kid. I want the Vance family destroyed. Utterly ambitious, Chun said, closing the file. But do you have any idea how much power they have in this city? That's why I need your help. Tell me your plan. Night had fallen by the time I left the Onyx Lounge. Chin had agreed to consider my proposal, but the look in his eyes told me he was already sold. Mark was parked around the corner. How did it go? Chin's in, I said, buckling my seatbelt. But he has his own terms. Which are? He wants the Apex Tower. Mark sucked in a breath. That's the heart of the Vance Empire. Exactly, I said with a cold smile. It was built on my father's land. Chin sees it as poetic justice. Do you trust him? No, I shook my head. But for now, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. My phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a familiar female voice came through the speaker, choked with sobs. Kyle, please, you have to help me. It was Sophia. The abandoned warehouse was even grimmer in the rainy night. Sophia Reed was huddled in a corner, her eyes a mixture of relief and terror when she saw us. Kyle! She ran and threw her arms around me, trembling. I stood rigidly, not returning the embrace. What happened? Ethan, she sobbed. He's gone crazy. He said you have some kind of proof. He kept asking if I'd been in contact with you. He hit me. There was a bruise on her cheek, and the corner of her eye was bloody. Mark handed her a bottle of water. Why come to Kyle? You could have gone to the police. The police? She laughed bitterly. Do you have any idea how many cops are on the Vance payroll? Then how did he let you just walk away? I asked, my eyes scanning our surroundings. He got a call and had to leave in a hurry. I took the chance and ran. I didn't know who else to call. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. I know you hate me, but I had nowhere else to go. I stared at her for a long moment. How did you know where to find me? She froze. I haven't contacted anyone since I got out, except for Mark and Chloe. How did you find me? I asked around. You're lying, I said coldly. Ethan knows what I took from the house. He sent you here to find out what I have. Sophia's expression changed in an instant, the tears vanishing. You've changed, Kyle. The man I knew would never speak to me like this. The man you knew was a fool, Sophia. 5 years in prison gives you a lot of time to see things clearly. I waited for you for 2 years. She suddenly flared. 2 years. Do you have any idea what that was like? No, I was in prison for 5. She sighed. I just want to know what you took. Ethan is losing his mind. So you admit he sent you? She was silent for a moment, then nodded. He said if I could find out what you have, he'd leave you alone. Otherwise he'd kill me. I laughed. He was already planning on doing that. You don't know the Ethan of today, she said softly. He's become dangerous. Ever since you got out, he's been like a different person. He's always been this person. You just chose not to see it. Mark cut us off. We've got company. Through the grimy window, the headlights of 3 black SUVs were cutting through the rain, heading straight for the warehouse. Damn it, he followed you. I glared at Sophia. I don't know. I swear. She cried, looking terrified. Out the back, Mark said, pulling my arm, but I didn't move. Kyle, let's go. You go, I said, pulling out the gun I'd taken from the house. I think it's time, Ethan. And I had a real conversation. Mark hesitated. Don't be a hero. If I'm not out in 3 minutes, you drive. Take her with you, I said, nodding at Sophia. I hid behind a stack of crates as Ethan and 6 of his thugs entered the warehouse. His shoulder was bandaged, his face a thunderous mask. Come on out, Kyle. I know you're in here, he called out, and I know Sophia's with you. I remained silent. Kyle, his voice rose. I just want the evidence. I don't want to hurt anyone. Hand it over, and we can call it even. Call it even, like you did with my father? My voice echoed in the cavernous space. Ethan's head snapped in my direction. Your father's death was an accident. Bullshit, I roared. He found out about your money laundering scheme, and you had him killed before he could expose you. Ethan's face paled. Who told you that? Does it matter? I shifted my position. My father, my team, 5 years of my life. You destroyed it all. Don't be a fool, Kyle. Give me the evidence. I can give you enough money to disappear and start a new life. I don't want a new life, I sneered. I want you dead. Crack. A bullet whizzed past Ethan's ear and shattered a light fixture behind him, plunging the warehouse into near darkness. In the chaos, I moved quickly, taking down 2 of the thugs before they knew what was happening. Ethan roared for the others to find me. I was near an exit when I heard a woman scream. Sophia. I turned to see Ethan holding her by the hair, the barrel of his gun pressed to her temple. Out now, Kyle, or she dies. I raised my hands and slowly stepped out from behind a shelving unit. Let her go. Where's the evidence? I don't have it with me. Ethan smiled cruelly. Then you're no use to me. A gunshot rang out, but it wasn't from Ethan's gun. Mark had circled back, firing from the side and hitting Ethan in the wrist. I seized the opportunity, lunging forward and landing a solid punch on Ethan's jaw. He stumbled back, releasing Sophia. Go! I grabbed her and sprinted for the exit. We piled into Mark's car and sped away into the night. In the back seat, Sophia was shaking uncontrollably. Ethan's not going to let me live, she wept. I looked back at her. Now do you see what kind of man he is? She nodded miserably. I'm so sorry, Kyle. I truly didn't know he was capable of this. It's not too late to know, I said, then turned to Mark. To the safe house. Whether she was telling the truth or not, Sophia had nowhere else to turn, and I was one step closer to my revenge. The safe house was a farmhouse in rural Illinois, owned by one of Mark's old army buddies. You two stay put. I'll get some supplies, Mark said before driving off. The silence in the house was suffocating. Sophia sat curled up on the couch, stealing glances at me. Do you hate me? She finally asked. You're not worth the energy, I replied without looking at her. I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, but I really... Stop. I cut her off. I have one question. What do you know about my father's death? She flinched. I don't know. Ethan always said it was a heart attack. Look me in the eye and say that. Her gaze dropped to the floor. I just heard Ethan mention it once. That he hired a specialist. Someone who could make it look like natural causes. My blood ran cold. You knew. And you stayed with the man who murdered my father? I didn't know it was your father. Ethan said it was a business rival, she cried, breaking down completely. By the time I found out the truth, it was too late. Too late for what? You'd fallen in love with him? Where's money? I was trapped, she shot back. Ethan had something on me. My father had gambling debts. Ethan paid them off. I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. So you became his property. It wasn't just that. She bit her lip. He showed me surveillance photos from the prison. You were close with another inmate, a guy named Leo Martinez. Ethan said you'd already moved on. I was stunned, then I started to laugh again, this time with pure, bitter irony. Leo was the only friend I made in 5 years, the only other person who believed I was innocent. He died of lung cancer 2 years ago. I took care of him in the infirmary for his last 3 months. The color drained from Sophia's face. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said, seeing right through her. You just needed an excuse you could live with. I turned to the window, the moonlight as pale and cold as my past. I'll give you money, I said quietly. Enough to leave this city and start over. But you have to do one thing for me. What? Testify. About the Vance family's crimes, about how my father really died. Everything you know. They'll kill me, she said, horrified. You think they'll let you live if you don't? I turned back to her. Ethan doesn't trust you anymore. She was silent for a long time before finally nodding. I'll do it. To make things right. By the time Mark got back, I had a plan. I called Detective Miller. Mark said, putting down a bag of groceries. He's agreed to put a witness in protective custody. But he needs hard evidence, not just testimony. My father's laptop has the financial records, the proof of money laundering, I said. But for the murder, we need more. Sophia spoke up suddenly. I know what kind of drug they used. Ethan keeps the records in his safe. And a video. What video? Your father's last moments, she said, her voice trembling. Ethan, he kept it as a souvenir. I fought back a wave of rage. Can you get into that safe? I know the combination, she hesitated. But you have to promise me you won't kill him. Let the law handle it. I didn't answer. I just stood up. Mark, get ready. Tomorrow, we pay Mr. Vance a visit. Later that night, I sat alone on the porch steps. The country wind did little to cool the fire in my soul. Mark came out with 2 mugs of coffee. Can't sleep. After 5 years, I'm used to the dark. She's asleep, he said, handing me a mug. Do you trust her? Not completely, but she's scared enough to cooperate. You really think you can pull this off tomorrow? Ethan's not stupid. I took a sip of the bitter coffee. He thinks I'm still gathering proof. He has no idea I have everything I need. All that's left is the final push. Do you know how this could end? Mark asked, his voice filled with concern. Either I die, or they do. Is it worth it? I looked up at the stars. 5 years ago, I almost killed myself in that cell. The only things that kept me alive were the need for truth and the promise of revenge. There's no turning back now. I'm with you, brother. Just don't let the hate consume you. I was quiet for a long time. When this is over, I want to visit Leo's grave. It'll be over, Mark said, clapping my shoulder. Tomorrow, it all ends. But fate had other plans. Just as dawn was breaking, a frantic pounding on the door jolted us awake. Mark crept to the door, gun in hand. He looked through the peephole and quickly unlocked it. Detective Miller burst in, breathless and sweating. We got a problem. Someone found Ethan Vance's body at the Apex Tower. The Apex Tower was wrapped in yellow police tape. News vans and gawkers crowded the perimeter. Detective Miller led us through a service entrance and up to the penthouse suite. Ethan Vance lay in a pool of blood, one gunshot wound to the chest, another to the forehead. A classic mob execution. The room had been tossed, and the large safe in the wall stood open and empty. Security footage shows 2 masked individuals. They were professionals, didn't leave a single print, Miller said in a low voice. In at 3:20 a.m., out by 3:25. Any leads? I asked. Almost nothing. It was a clean job. But, he hesitated, someone left this behind. He showed me a plastic evidence bag. Inside were my military dog tags, confiscated 5 years ago when I was arrested. Someone's framing me. It's worse than that, Miller said, his expression grim. We found a log of fake calls between your burner phone and Vance's. and bank records showing a large wire transfer from him to an offshore account in your name. My mind raced. This is a setup. Do you have an alibi? Mark spoke up immediately. He was with me all night. Sophia Reed can back it up. Her testimony might not be enough. Miller was cut off by a frantic call on his radio. His face went pale. Sophia's gone. The officers at the safe house were knocked out. Mark and I looked at each other, the same realization dawning on us both. We'd been played. Victor Chun, I said through clenched teeth. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Gets rid of Vance and frames me for it. Why? I thought he was helping you. Mark said, confused. In our plan, Ethan gets arrested and his company is seized by the feds. The Apex Tower goes to auction. Chun didn't want to wait, and he didn't want to take any chances. Miller looked grave. Kyle, I have to take you in for questioning. Give me 2 hours, I pleaded. I know where to find a proof that will clear my name. Miller wrestled with the decision. 2 hours. Then, no matter what, you turn yourself in. We left the hotel and went straight to the Onyx Lounge, but the doors were locked. A security guard told us Mr. Chun had left the country on business. He's gone, Mark cursed. Now what? I scanned the street, my eyes landing on a coffee shop across the way. Surveillance. Every corner of this street is on camera. We flashed the temporary badge Miller had given us, and the coffee shop manager reluctantly gave us access to his security feed. Around 3 a.m., a black sedan pulled up to the lounge. Victor Chun got in with 4 bodyguards. And, to my shock, Sophia Reed was with them, looking calm and composed. That bitch, Mark seethed. I kept watching. The car didn't go toward the Apex Tower. It went to a private airfield on the outskirts of the city. They're leaving the country. We raced to the airfield, but it was too late. Chen's private jet had taken off an hour ago, destination listed for a small Caribbean nation with no extradition treaty. It's over, Mark said, slumping into a chair. Without her testimony, you're going down for this. Not yet, I said, opening my father's laptop. Chen got too cocky. I hacked into the Apex Tower's backup security system, the one the Vance family used for their own private surveillance, separate from the hotel's main feed. There were hidden cameras in every room, including Ethan's penthouse. Got it. The video was crystal clear. It showed Chun and his men entering the suite. It showed them executing Ethan, and it showed Sophia calmly walking to the safe, opening it, and removing a stack of documents. The final shot was of Chun deliberately placing my dog tags on the floor next to the body. I've got the proof, I said, breathing a sigh of relief. But they're already gone. Mark sat bolt upright. Wait, which airfield did you say they used? The private one on the east side. Why? That field can only handle short-range jets. They'll have to make a refueling stop, Mark said, his eyes gleaming. And the closest international hub on that flight path is Miami, I realized, where the feds have a major field office. Miller can contact the FBI, Mark said, already dialing. We can still get them. 2 hours later, Detective Miller delivered the news himself. Chen's jet was grounded in Miami. He, his men, and Sophia were all in federal custody. The documents she was carrying were the final nail in the coffin, not only proving Ethan's crimes, but also detailing Chen's partnership with the Vance family. The whole house of cards came down, Miller said, clapping me on the shoulder. Your name is cleared. For good this time. It'll take a while to sort out the paperwork, but it's over. That evening, I stood at my father's grave, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. It's finished, Dad, I said softly. They all paid the price. Mark waited quietly behind me, giving me space. What's next? He finally asked. I looked out at the distant skyline. Rebuild Dad's company. Take care of Chloe. And all the pain? The hate. I'm burying it here with the past, I said, taking a deep breath. 5 years in a prison cell taught me that if you live by hate, you die by it. As the sun set, we walked away from the cemetery and toward a new beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I could walk it as myself, not as someone else's scapegoat. 1 month later, I sat in the restored office of the Anderson Corporation, looking out at the city I now saw with new eyes. This office had been my father's. Now it was mine. Mr. Anderson, here is the latest financial report, my new assistant said, placing a binder on my desk. I nodded. Thank you. I'll review it shortly. The fall of the Vance empire was swift. With Ethan dead and his father arrested, their corporate dynasty crumbled like dust. The Apex Tower was seized by the court and would soon be up for auction. "You have a visitor," Mark said, pushing the door open. Behind him was Detective Miller, though he was now Captain Miller. "Congratulations on the promotion, Captain," I said, standing to shake his hand. Miller smiled. "Couldn't have done it without you. We didn't just get Chun. We dismantled 2/3 of the Dragon Syndicate's operations." "How's the trial against Vance Sr. going?" "He confessed. Everything, including the conspiracy to murder your father," Miller said, handing me a file. "This is a copy of the complete case file. You deserve to know the whole truth." I took the file, but didn't open it. "What about Sophia?" "The DA accepted her plea deal. In exchange for her testimony as the star witness, she'll get a reduced sentence." I nodded, feeling nothing but a distant emptiness. After Miller left, Mark sat across from me. "Want me to read it for you?" "No," I shook my head. "The past is the past. The Apex Tower is being auctioned next week. You're really going to buy it back?" "It was built on my father's land," I said, walking to the window. "But I'm not keeping the building. I'm going to tear it down and build a hospital. In my father's name." Mark smiled. He would have liked that. A knock on the door announced my lawyer. The courts had officially expunged my record, and the military had issued a formal apology and offered a substantial back pay settlement. "And they returned this," the lawyer said, handing me a small, velvet box. I opened it. Inside were the medals I had earned, no longer tarnished by shame. That evening, I visited Chloe at the family home, which she had moved back into. "You look lighter, Kyle," she said, handing me a cup of tea. "I feel like I can finally breathe again." "Have you forgiven them?" "Ethan, Sophia, all of them." I thought for a moment. It's not about forgiveness. It's about letting go. Hating them was just another kind of prison. Chloe nodded. "Dad would be so proud of you. I just hope he can rest in peace." Back in my father's study, I finally opened the case file for Miller. It detailed the greed, the corruption, and a final, heartbreaking truth. In Sophia's official testimony, she recounted something my father had said to the man who killed him. "Tell my son, don't seek revenge. Living is more important than anything." Tears blurred my vision. All my years of rage, all my careful planning for retribution, and all my father had wanted was for me to simply live. I walked out onto the balcony and looked up at the stars, imagining I could see his kind face among them. "I did it, Dad," I whispered. "I survived, and I found my way back." The next day, I officially announced the relaunch of the Anderson Corporation and our plan to build the Anderson Memorial Hospital. The story of my exoneration and return was a media sensation, but I declined all interviews. Mark became the head of corporate security, and several of our old Army buddies joined the team. The Anderson Corporation was back, but this time we were building a different kind of legacy. Standing at the window of my new office, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The fire of vengeance had burned out, and in its place, something new was beginning to grow. 3 years later, at the dedication ceremony for the Anderson Memorial Hospital, I stood on the stage, looking at the state-of-the-art facility with a deep sense of pride. It stood on the old site of the Apex Tower, a monument not to greed, but to healing. It would serve the entire city, with a special fund to provide care for those who couldn't afford it. "It's a beautiful hospital," Mark said, standing beside me. He was now the COO of the corporation. "Your dad will be proud." I nodded, my eyes finding Chloe in the crowd. She had graduated from med school and was now one of the first resident doctors on staff. After the ceremony, I went to my father's memorial room inside the hospital. His portrait hung on the wall, and beneath it, a plaque engraved with his favorite saying, "Kindness is more important than wisdom, and living is more meaningful than revenge." "I made it, Dad," I whispered. My phone vibrated. A text from Captain Miller. Sophia Reed was granted parole for good behavior. She's being released tomorrow. I had never visited her in prison. The hate was long gone, replaced by a quiet indifference. My life had moved forward. "Are you going to see her?" Mark asked, appearing in the doorway. "No, that chapter is closed," I said, "but I have my lawyer arrange a job and a place for her to stay. It's up to her if she takes it. You're a more forgiving man than I am." "It's not about forgiveness. It's about freedom," I smiled. "Hate is a chain. When I let it go, I set myself free. That night, I was at my new home, a modest house in the suburbs with a clear view of the city lights. I was sipping a glass of wine on the patio when my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you. For everything. S. I didn't reply. I just put the phone back in my pocket. The next morning at the office, my assistant informed me I had an unexpected visitor. The door opened, and a man in a crisp army uniform walked in, my old commanding officer, General Hayes. "It's been a long time, Captain Anderson," he said, extending a hand. "It's just Kyle now, General," I replied, shaking it. "You'll always be one of my best soldiers," he said, taking a seat. "I'm here with a proposal. The Pentagon is putting together a new elite task force to deal with unconventional threats. We need men like you." I shook my head. "My war is over, General." "This isn't about war, Kyle. It's about protection," he said earnestly. "You served your country, and your country failed to protect you. Give us a chance to make it right." I looked out the window, considering his offer. "You know, General," I said, turning back to him, "my father's last wish was that I live." It took me a long time to understand what that meant. "And your answer is?" "I won't be rejoining the service," I said firmly, "but I would be honored to serve as a consultant. My company can develop medical and tactical technology for your teams." General Hayes nodded. "A wise choice. A soldier in peacetime is just as valuable." After he left, I went up to the rooftop garden of the building, looking down on the city that was once my battlefield. 3 years ago, I had returned consumed by hate, wanting only to destroy. Today, I was a builder, a healer. Mar joined me. "What did the general want?" "He wanted me back." "You said no." I nodded. "That's not my life anymore." "So what is it you want now?" I looked out at the horizon, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "Peace. Just peace." As the sun began to set, we left the building. People bustled past on the sidewalk, each with their own story, their own pain, and their own hope. 5 years in a prison, 3 years of rebuilding. I finally understood my father's last words. Living well isn't just the best revenge. It's the only one that matters.